And Dave, in terms of where we want to start, I was kind of intentional with the agenda in the way that I laid it out. I thought that the the bylaws feel kind of neutral and an easy way to kind of drop into the conversation. So if you're comfortable with that, I think it would be a good place to start. And you are muted, so.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm used to working with multiple screens, so when it tells me I'm muted, I don't see it because I'm already looking at the bylaws. It's just going to be a round table of these issues, I think. So I'm happy to move on to the bylaws, but really quick, if you look at the agenda, are there any questions, or would anyone like to examine further the work back in 2018 that we did? I can summarize that briefly. I can tell you it's not a strategic plan initiative direction that we are following currently, but I'm happy to kind of talk about the process because there's many of you that were not part of it. But it was sort of the end product of what we did the last time we came together like this. So anybody want me to spend any more time there before we move to bylaws?
Could you give us some for those of us that are new?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Could you just give a summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So what we did is we had a similar conversation. We came together as a committee, and I offered, along with, I know Bhushan, and then Bhushan, who was the other individual? Why am I forgetting her name? She came off recently. Anyway, the three of us led a subcommittee that would take the group through sort of an organizational development concept, where basically we would identify areas that we thought were important areas of focus for this committee and essentially group them together to then bring to the full committee to have a conversation about how we might reduce that even further into actionable areas to focus our attention. We did do that through conversation and a number of different activities, and we were able to narrow it down to 3 to 5 areas that we were going to focus on in particular that had to do with similar things to what we're talking about now: outreach, diversity, a focus on spreading the messages and getting feedback in amongst the initiatives of the city. And then I think, as everybody was well-intentioned, we did take a few things on and examine them further. And then a little bit of life just kind of took over, and some of the things slipped off the agenda. New things came on the agenda for us to talk about that were contemporary. Enough time goes by, and it just ends up collecting a little bit of dust, as sometimes can happen, which is not a condemnation of the process or the outcome. So now here we are today, kind of talking about it once again in anticipation of our focus moving forward. Nadine, I'm not sure if she was able to find any of that content. I don't know if it's relevant to hand it out at a future committee meeting to give an idea of what we got into or not. But if so, we can provide that.
Let's see here. We do have minutes from past meetings, and yeah, I think we could coordinate on the time frame. I should be able to come up with the minutes at least where you guys discussed it. So yeah, I think we could do that.
Miranda Woods, that was her name, the other individual that helped Bhushan and I. Okay, so happy to field any other questions about that as we move along. But in terms of the bylaws, they've largely remained the same over time. And I guess where, if we're going to take a high level view of them, where I would have us focus would just be, page 1. This is one of the attachments that Nadine had handed out with the materials for this meeting. And it nicely outlines pretty robustly that there's a lot of autonomy and responsibility as part of this committee. And I think what we're doing is examining the degree to which we're actually executing on that. But if you go down under C, letter C, specific duties include, and I won't take the time to read those off, but as you do, take a look at those, maybe even the first one in particular. that's kind of where we've been spending our time, is individuals bringing one-page scenarios of what they would like to present to us and get our feedback to help with promoting those initiatives, giving, committing to whatever kind of outreach that we could have. But if you keep reading into this document prior to Section 2, there's a lot of information in here and a lot of allowance for us to do more as a committee. And I wanted to have just kind of a melting pot conversation as to what stands out to people and what we might do specifically if we're looking to have any kind of change. Nadine has a very nice piece in here regarding strengthening the diversity language. I think that's a very focused thing that we can focus on. And then it looks like this is also an area, if you look at the agenda, where we can talk about a little bit of operational stuff, frequency of meetings, and should the committee meet more than 6 times per year, duration of meetings, those sort of things. So without giving too specific of direction or asking specific questions, how do the bylaws hit you as committee members, or any of you, in comparison to the work that we actually do on an every other month basis? What stands out? When you joined this committee, what was your interest or anticipation in terms of what you might learn or provide to the committee at that time?
So Dave, is it one?
Sorry, say that again.
I said, is it okay if I pick on someone?
It's fine with me. But yeah.
So just for a little background, one thing that we heard, and one thing that Councillor Newton and I shared when we were doing the last recruitment for new members, was that we really were looking for community members who want to be active and not only provide feedback, but are part of the process of sharing information about the city and to the city from their friends, families, networks within Tigard. And Connie specifically had made the comment that she would like to do more and would like to be called on more by the city for that role. So Connie, I know this is kind of catching you, on the fly, but I wonder if you have any thoughts around that you'd be willing to share with the committee.
Well, sure. I feel like there is more that we can do. I appreciate the opportunities that we've had, especially when we had our chief talk about the levy and our opportunities to give input. So whenever we've had a speaker come, again, when we had, and I think back to when we had, Officer Wolf come and talk about, the red light activity that was going on. I like it when we are able to give input and feedback to what we would like to see happen. The conversations that we had, of course, before COVID hit, when we were meeting in person, it seems like there was a lot of involvement, a lot of opportunity for us to give input, feedback to what the city was doing. And we all had different opinions, but again, I think those that were in charge, and I'm looking at Liz and Kent, and you, Nadine, being with the city, whenever we were able to give feedback or input, you took that very seriously. When we had our special speakers come, the same thing. I felt like what we were saying and the input we were giving were valuable to those that were in charge. And so that's what I like about the involvement, is being able to really give my opinion from my point of view, my family's point of view, being a citizen of Tigard, you know, depending on what is happening within the city. Is
Thanks,
that helpful?
I don't know if Dave can see your hand, Kathy, so I'm going to go ahead and call on you.
Nope, I was just gonna, I just realized my hand was still raised, so I put it down. Thank you.
I think Christine has hers up though.
Good.
I didn't mean to raise my hand, or is that me, or somebody else has my same initials. Anyway, I will go ahead and just chime in though. I feel exactly as Connie does. Actually, I have, going back to where we were meeting in person, I felt like the people that were coming to us were having specific questions and were, you know, really wanting to understand the community's, like, or, you know, our view of how messages would be perceived and that kind of thing. And that was, those kind of meetings felt pretty impactful. And I've always, you know, I didn't really know exactly what I was getting into when I started, but I love the community service and actually being able to, like, be volunteering and doing different things. And we'd kind of talked about that a few times, and maybe that's just, this isn't the right place to do that. But I want to feel like I'm a little more impactful, and I'm just going to be completely honest and say lately, I just feel like I'm not being that impactful.
Thanks for that, Christine. Question, a follow-up question. Are you able to articulate what more impactful would look like?
Well, I think it's hard right now, because to me, impactful is, you know, there's this event helping, we could really, or the event happening, and we could use somebody running a table to get community feedback on something. Or, so I guess, though, any opportunity that we could be reaching out to the community, or just like be that middleman for the city to gather information, or to just give input on things. If that helps a little bit. But obviously that takes kind of events starting to happen, which maybe they will soon, but that's all I have for now.
So calling other comments about how people are feeling. So Bhushan, do you have your hand up? If so, please go ahead.
I think Amber's had her hand up for a while.
Oh, okay. So Nadine, I might not be able to, I don't know if you have a better view from your position to call on people when they have their hands raised. I'm not seeing, like, Amber, for example.
Okay, I can tell you that Amber, Basil, and Bhushan all have their hands up currently.
Okay, well, so let's take them in that order: Amber, Basil, and then Bhushan. And if you have spoken and your hands up, go ahead and pull that down so it doesn't create confusion.
Okay, then I think what my experience has been since this has started this year versus what I thought I was getting involved in, I would have to agree with Christine. I thought it was going to be more community engagement. And like, we've only had, I think, the 2 meetings for the year, but I'm getting the feeling that we're more like a focus group that other people are coming to and kind of getting feedback. The only bad thing about that is that when I look at everyone, or I see names, I'm not sure how representative we are of the community. And so I think what you're getting is a group of, 20 people's feedback, and it may not necessarily be representative of the community, because I understand with COVID and things that it can be a little more difficult for a new person to get engaged with the community. But I do agree with Christine that I had thought that it was going to be more outreach, more like a consensus of reaching out to the community, sharing information with them, getting their feedback, helping the community understand what's going on in Tigard, how to become involved, or even things like if there's a new initiative on some water issue or something. But, something where we were more of a conduit, a communication conduit of getting that information out to the community and providing the community's feedback, not necessarily my personal feedback. And I feel like the last couple of meetings, it's really been more, what do I think about something? And I'm not so sure it's representative of the community at large, or even representative of the diversity in the community, even being a diverse person. So, I don't speak for all minorities or whole women by any means. And so that's some of my concerns, is that I'm not so sure when I hear about the community engagement and part, how engaged I actually feel, or how engaged I've been. And I do think that there, even in COVID times and with virtual aspects, I think that there are some other opportunities, just like people have learned to work from home remotely. And we do that, most companies are being pretty successful. And I think that there would be some other opportunities for us to engage, even from a digital perspective, and still include a broader swath of the community, rather than just being reactive to people coming into the meetings and say, what do you think? And be proactive and say, bring me what you're going to bring to me. Let me go out there, virtually, digitally, do surveys, whatever, and come back with kind of a consensus of what the community thinks about it, not just me personally. That's all.
That's great. Great feedback. So is it Basil and then Bhushan?
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about, to tag on to what Connie had said earlier, mostly just like at the end of her comments, but I kind of can't frame the last thing you said, Connie, very well. But I'll say this, and then you can tell me if it's sort of close. I think there's sort of a perceived interface with City Council with this committee. I could be wrong about that, but I kind of think that we are, a mechanism for providing City Council some aspect of community engagement, I think. I don't know if our bylaws say that necessarily. I'm just looking at the specific duties. But going back to what Connie was saying, if I have this right, is about, again, the connection with City Council. And I say that because there are issues, germane to the city that I see that are things that I don't see much opportunity for input on. And I'm wondering if this committee could be, beyond what the duties say specifically, coming up with some ideas for things that involve a city where people participate, and there is some need for outreach and perhaps monitoring about services that are provided to the city. And are we meeting some direction or goal of those services that are being provided? And I have several, so I won't go into those kind of details at this point. But I just want some more clarity around our role with city council and the mayor. What is do we have a kind of a relationship there of some sort? Relationship is probably not the right word, but do we have some kind of connection where there's an expectation from this committee as far as City Council goes? I don't know. Somebody would have to answer that for me.
So Liz, did you want to jump in on that particular point? Is that why your hand was up?
Sure, thank you, Nadine. And I think those of you that have spoken have I'm going to say hit the nail on the head. As somebody who was on staff when this switch was made, I think Basil and Connie are both remembering what we talked about. And it's kind of two basic things. We wanted to create a committee that could give us input, not necessarily your opinion on a project, but how we're doing the outreach. What is the communication on a project looking like? You get the information and you say, okay, well, wait a minute. I remember we did the levy a while ago, and this group was great at saying, I wouldn't care about that. What I would want to know is this, and this tool is not going to be effective here. So it's not so much what do you think about the project, but what do you think about the way we're going to connect? We're thinking about connecting with the community to communicate that. That's one thing. And then the other thing is for people on this committee, as several of you have said, to go out into the committee and maybe at a street fair or something, be the ones there hearing from folks, doing like a survey, whatever kind of the outreach would be. And then the third thing that Basil talked about was when we first started this, what are we missing? What do you as a community member want to hear about that we're not talking about? Certain services, certain initiatives, certain issues, and how would you advise that we communicate with the community about that? So it's really how we're communicating on the work we're doing, getting out there and connecting with the community. And then, as I think Amber said it well, kind of being that conduit. And then the third thing, what are we missing? Because when we started this, we sort of felt like we're not communicating perhaps about everything that matters to folks or that may matter if they heard about it. So I'll quit there, but that's what I think we had in mind. And as a counselor now, I'm interested in hearing from this group about how we're engaging, how we can improve that, and also as you go out and engage, getting feedback from you on what you're hearing or how effective it is. So
let's go to Bashan, and then Connie will come back to you.
So I have really felt like the way Amber was saying for a while, and I've been on this committee for a long time, and I should know my way around a little bit better than that. It has been a privilege to listen to the people who come with the projects. Chief came a couple times, Ken came a couple times, and be able to understand what they want from us and then maybe provide some solutions. And like Amber said, it happens to be my thinking and the way I think would be best. The only conduit I have had in the past is I happened to invite Chief for our HOA meeting, although it was not a huge meeting, but still there was enough participation so people can express their feelings, their thoughts, and then get an answer from the Chief. Luckily enough, we put those answers in the meeting minutes, and then it got exposed. The whole event got exposed to hopefully maybe 50 or some families or something like that. What I have really, and I have enjoyed listening to the strategies and the plans and maybe able to contribute wherever I could. But the thing which I have been not able to do a lot is asking my community, what do you want, or present them, this is the plan from the city, what do you think of it? And I can really don't have the tools to do that. Like somebody says, a survey, how do I do that? Can I even go door to door? Would they recognize me? Would they be able to answer my questions or express their feelings? Has anybody has that kind of experience? I know Dolly does that a lot because she's in a neighborhood where people have lived for a long time and they interact very well. But if there are ways to do that, either through the city or through by our own committee, it would help me a great deal. That's all I have.
Are you ready for me, Dave? Well,
Sorry about that. I was making notes. Go ahead, please.
You bet. I just wanted to make a couple of comments, and I'm going back a ways because both Liz and Nadine and I know Bhushan and Basil both have been involved for several years, and I'm going way back because I've been involved probably about as long as forever. And something that we that made it fun and exciting was the city gave us a lot of opportunity to give service, to be involved. Of course, we haven't been able to do that, but in addressing your comments and your concerns, Amber, it used to be that we were out in the community a lot. Whenever there was an activity going on, we were always invited to be a part of it. So I don't know if that's gonna, with technology and the way things have changed, we just don't do as much community involvement and activities and events that we used to do. But keeping that in mind for this committee, it was a great opportunity to volunteer and to mingle with people in the city and to be in the community, to see community members come. We did several different activities at the library. We had a huge barbecue one year out, near the library area. And so, and Liz, I'm sure you can remember much better than I can all the different things that we were involved in. And it really gave it a lot of meaning. So I don't know, going forward, if this is something that the city could keep us in mind, invite us to be a part of, or to come up with some strategies of things that we can do to really get out there in the community to make our name known and to participate. So I just wanted to add that little bit of background.
It's interesting that if I'm hearing right, we've heard from a couple of committee members, one clearly saying, hey, I'd like to be more involved. I mean, I'm generalizing, but I'd like to be more involved, doing more, thought I would be doing more, et cetera. And then you have another one saying, yeah, I sort of reflect that, but I haven't found the time. I haven't been able to, haven't been as active. Of course, COVID playing the role that it has, who knows what the last year would have looked like. We haven't had those opportunities. But one of the things that strikes me, and Nadine, probably not a shock, we're kind of jumping around the agenda here a little bit, and I think that's okay if we cover everything. But one of the things that strikes me is that we have on this agenda the idea of updates or smaller subcommittees or smaller groups that might work to focus on particular areas that, whatever, they have interest or they have additional time. And then as we come together currently as set up every other month, we would hear the feedback from those groups. They would ask for the resources and the information that they need, and that would be combined with other presentations potentially like we've had before. So I'm not saying this is a direction we go, but what I'm trying to do is find a way for those that would like to be more engaged, that they can, and those that are kind of at the threshold with the water line just under the nose of availability, they can pull back a little bit and everybody is effective. So some of the areas that we've pointed out and discussed before that might be available for committee work, and I'm not suggesting we have all of these, I think it's overkill, but to give an example would be diversity, where we're looking at the bylaws, looking at the makeup of the committee. How can we bring in more diversity to the committee? How can we reach more diversity in terms of feedback from the community on the initiatives? All things diversity. That being one. Applicant feedback and recommendations. As a committee, we don't decide who will and will not join our committee. That's up to Liz and her team, but we can certainly review those applicants and give feedback based on who we think would be great. So maybe we have a small group of folks that are willing to do that. An action integration or a community engagement and outreach. I know those are a lot of words, but basically the subcommittee that designs, not necessarily that they be the ones that get out to do the work, but they find the things that we could get out and do the work. They help recruit, they help come up with the ideas, they help solicit the resources that we would need to put the barbecue on or whatever it might be, farmers markets, where do we get the tent? And they sort of work with Nadine and her team to figure that out. And then representation and volunteerism. How can we just aim to get more people involved with the actions of the city as a whole? And like I said, I don't think all of those, but it's, you know, I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but the idea that you would have subcommittees that can do this work amongst people who have those interests and have the time, and then we come back and celebrate that work at our full committee meetings and entertain feedback from the initiatives of the people from city council and staff on, as Councillor Newton pointed out, not exactly our feedback on our opinions, but exactly feedback on how they might solicit feedback and get the ways they might get the word out and those types of things. So I just want to put that out there, and in the interest of time, just float that and receive feedback on generally the idea of committee work. Connie, is your hand up again or just not down yet? Okay, no problem. So soliciting from anybody with feedback on that.
I think it's a great idea, so that people can contribute where they have time to contribute or participate to which level, so that they fulfilled by being a part of this.
Yeah, Bhushan, I think, are your hands up there?
Yes, I wanted to say the third subcommittee you talked about, where we try to find out the ways where we can be listening to the people we represent. Okay? Whatever ways they are, either we may have used them in the past, we may find out some new ways, and some connectivity with the people who we're trying to represent. Okay? I have struggled with that all along. I've been here for a while now, and it would really be good to brainstorm some ways where we don't overburden people, the people who we represent or ourselves, but still come up with some simplistic ways where we can be in connection, we be connected with the people we represent. That's all I have.
And another thing that I should have included as part of that I think if we like this idea, generally speaking, that we need to be mindful of staff and staff time and, you know, committee support in minutes and, you know, that sort of thing. I don't suggest that it, you know, our subcommittees would have a lot of staff support and, you know, a few emails here and there and some direction, and lion's share of the work would still be done at the full committee level. But I do want to be sensitive to that piece, certainly.
Can you share a little bit more on normally what that split has historically been? Not having participated in things like that before, I'm not sure what the lift is on the committee side versus what you're saying from the administrative side.
Well, I might yield to Nadine on this, but if you know about my background at all, I have a very sensitive side to the burden that committees put on staff in terms of, you know, their work and everything. And so I would have to yield to Nadine to comment on, you know, the amount of work in Kent, the amount of work that they put into the committees and what subcommittee work might actually do. And I would invite them to be fully honest here.
I was looking to see if Kent had comments there. You know, I think that I'm the guest for an hour-and-a-half meeting. It probably takes me about 8 hours of work over that 2-month period to get minutes out, to schedule the next speakers, to, put all the agenda information together and make sure the speakers have got the things that they need. I will say that this year we're requesting an administrative person that would help with some of that support, that might build some capacity. And I work with 2 committees. Kent, I think you're working with 2 or 3 right now as well. So we have quite a bit of support work that we are currently providing. And so we're really looking forward to having someone that can help with some of that.
I mean, just to share a little bit on that. Yeah, I mean, the minutes are one thing that certainly does take time, but things, I work with the TI, the Youth Advisory Council, and the Community Roundtable, and the minutes in agenda are one thing, but the other work that comes from it, whether that's like requesting, hey, can you provide input on this, or what do you think about this, like that's really in line with what we do on a daily basis. So I wouldn't really even consider it extra work. Like if all things are humming, like that's just another way for us to do our jobs better. So there's almost like that administrative piece, and then more of that like engaging with the board or committee about, hey, here are some opportunities. What do you think about this? So while it may seem like extra work, some of it's really just in line with what we would be doing anyways, with our focus on engagement.
Let's go to Basil, and then I think Bashan has his hand up again too.
Oh, just a couple of things. I'm looking again at the specific duties include, and that's for the bylaws. Just in the first bullet item, it talks about review and provide comments to projects and program managers on specific plans for community outreach. But in the last sentence there, it says promote active two-way community engagement to surface issues of interest. And that last sentence is something, what does that mean exactly? I can interpret it a certain way. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but perhaps even not tonight, but perhaps somebody, maybe Nadine, could write to me to tell what does that mean specifically. We had this program, and the city had this program where they, for a couple of summers, city staff, two people in particular, went out to the community and stopped at certain locations, and they gave notice that they would be at those locations, just to hear about programs the city was working on, and just getting input from the local community directly. And it's like part of the come on was free ice cream, so people would show up and get a free ice cream. I never saw so many people in the neighborhood show up for something. If people that would drive by that lived in the neighborhood would stop, get out of the car, come up to get free ice cream, and fill out a card or talk to the representatives with there. I think it was a hugely successful endeavor. But they were actively going out and soliciting comments from the neighborhood, like, well, what do you think about, Tigard, and how we administer city functions and services and programs and all of that stuff. So people were giving direct access like that, or direct input. Is that something this committee could do as well? I'm not saying go out. We could probably do this electronically as well. But is that something that this committee should be? And when I read that sentence, it says, again, it says, let me find it here, promote active two-way community engagement to surface issues of interest. And that's pretty much what that ice cream fair was pretty much doing. Is it something that we could do as a committee? Because again, it's in our bylaws. I don't know exactly what that means, but does that mean sort of the same thing, but maybe in a different venue?
Basil, for what it's worth, I read that line the same way, that it would afford us the opportunity to seek engagement with the community to surface areas of interest. And I think your example of the ice cream social is exactly one way to do that. And it could be good work from a community engagement or outreach subcommittee to seek and discover and create those types of events, or maybe more effectively to piggyback on things that are already taking place in the community. And hey, can we throw ourselves up a tent and kind of have that feedback.
Sure.
Anyways, not looking to jump the line on Bhushan and Amber. So Bhushan, let's go there. And then I see Liz wants to join the party too.
I would be brief. This is about how much work we are putting on administration or other people involved with the city government. Look, the work we did, me, you, and Miranda did, it was not a small amount of work. And I don't think we burdened anybody from the city side, from city offices. So what I'm trying to say is we have had that example where we did quite a bit of work, me, you, and Miranda, and the community and the committee itself. We sorted a lot of things out. I guess the bottom line is that I feel like we wouldn't be really bothering or putting work on the city office liaison to do things which we have been trying to think about, like maybe we will go back to Ken, ask him, hey, how do we approach electronically to this group of people? Those are the kind of questions we will have. I don't see a situation where we'll say, oh, let's go to the city liaison and ask them to do this and this and this.
So Amber, let's bring you in.
Actually, for me, that sentence about promoting the two-way communication is how I interpreted this committee. So for me, that really says what I thought was going to be the purpose of the committee. But it sounds like maybe I'm just not following the conversation very well, but are there other committees that already do that, or did I just misunderstand one of the comments?
Dave?
Going out in the community, or?
Sorry, it's Councillor Newton, Liz. And I think I can respond to that. I wanted to comment on Basil's comment about the sentence, promote active two-way community engagement to surface issues of interest. The ice cream social is a good example of something that this committee might suggest as a way to promote two-way communication. So this committee could come up with ideas, thoughts about, this could be effective. We could piggyback on this. I think it would be important to get out in the community more. So I'm sort of giving maybe not specific ideas, but I see this committee as coming up with thoughts about how to promote active two-way community engagement. And an example you might come up with is the ice cream event or something like that. So that was, I think, what was behind the bylaws, was to say this committee would be the committee that's talking about giving the staff, the council ideas, because you're community members, about effective ways to have that two-way communication. Now, some of you may participate. The thought was, there may be limits because of resources, so we might have to tweak the idea, or that you might come up with some such as kind of ideas. But that was kind of the idea of the Committee for Community Engagement, was to be focused on how do we be maximum effectiveness in terms of being engaged with our community, whether it's educating, informing, actually, connecting. And so I think that sentence is key in terms of this committee coming up with ideas, suggestions in terms of promoting that. So, and the ice cream socials are an example of that.
And just for clarity, Amber, that wasn't a committee-led program that started in our community development department, and they invited staff from all different departments to participate. So there was a lot of information that we were able to share, and but a lot of times we would maybe have a focus when we went there, like we would be asking for feedback on a particular topic potentially. But it was nice because it was all departments, and so we really had a variety of information and feedback that we could gather.
Yeah, it seems like we might have, the dots are connecting on this particular piece, the engagement / outreach piece. We're hearing from committee members that they're interested in doing it. It sounds like we're confirming that it's already permissible via the bylaws. We're hearing from the city council, at least representative accounts are saying that, yeah, you better believe it. We would love to have that. And not only that, as Bhushan has pointed out, there is work that we can do either independently or in concert with other things already going on where we can piggyback to go solicit specific feedback on initiatives, or just to, it would have to be initiative or purpose driven, not just attend, because I don't know that any of us are experts on the city, but specifically what is it that we're looking to get feedback for? And I'm sure Liz and her team, or Nadine, you would be able to provide us with that topic. I see Taylor wants to jump in. We haven't heard from him yet, so I'm going to yield and bring him on board.
Thanks, Dave. And I'm sorry, my camera is not working for some reason. I blame Microsoft Teams. But for me, I really appreciate the talk about the feedback piece from community members. And I think for me, it really hones back in on the idea of the regularity of these meetings, because I think, the city moves at a relatively fast speed in terms of rolling out new programs and things like that. So I think, if we're only meeting, I think every other month, it doesn't really allow for that type of go out, get feedback, collect feedback, have conversations with folks. So I think that would be really important. I think getting people together more often creates more work and more energy. So I think that could really be a tool to help kind of hone in more on the mission of this group. And then I also really appreciate, I think Amber made comments about the diversity of this group and the need to really pull in other folks who live and call Tigard home. And I think that also would be really valuable in helping us come up with a more community representative mission of this group if we had more voices at this table.
Yeah, Amber.
One thing I want to be clear, when I say diversity, I'm not just saying, the 7 protected group diversity. I'm really talking about diversity of thought, because I think that that's the real thing that will make Tigard better, is the diversity of thought and the inclusion of different thought patterns and experiences.
Yeah, Connie, and then Nicole, to put you on the in the batter's box. I'm interested in the feedback that you've got. I know you've done sort of some work in this space too. So Connie, let's go with you, and then maybe we shift to Nicole.
Well, I just want to bring up something in the past that we've done around diversity, which was pretty phenomenal. And I know Liz probably remembers this, but we did a talent show where we had different groups put on their talent. And it was really representative of different cultures and a lot of diversity, and it was amazing. So, I mean, just to think outside the box, the sky's the limit, doing something like that, I remember it really bringing the community together. And so I just wanted to share that because, again, it was from the past, but I just remember how I felt, and many of those that I worked with and helped, how they felt, and it really did cause a lot of unity.
Thanks, Connie. Nicole, what can you share with?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for inviting me and letting me listen in, and I really appreciate the opportunity to hear this and how our kind of internal team conversations have been going. And the two things that my mind is kind of processing right now is the first piece about really the effective communication tools that are needed so that you can go out into the community and know know how to communicate, what to communicate, and have those tools available. And so the things that I kind of think of, like that we're working on, and Kathy championed in Seattle too, were like these simple like contact cards where we had different like contact the city. This is the phone, the email, who you can reach, and you just can hand those out. There's engage on projects, and being able to just have these resources to share with your neighbors and your networks. And it's just a kind of a nice little like introduction to like, hey, this is how you can give feedback. And just that's one little tool. But the other thing is like, we have these tablets that we recently got through a grant that maybe we could do some intercept surveys. Maybe we can have us go out into the community once everything's a little bit more safe and survey electronically. I know right now there have been virtual open houses on projects, and I'm not sure how involved you all have been in that, but I'm also thinking like from our internal communications team, like our coordinators are out there in the virtual world doing things. And so I think there is a link that we need to be good about coming back to you. And like even the second part I'm thinking about a lot is the volunteer piece, right? Like connecting to the community and being able to serve and volunteer. And recently we had a mural project that we did, and we did ask for volunteers through an email list. And like my mental note now is like, I need to email Nadine to see if CCE wants to be involved in that, right? And I think Taylor mentioned like the frequency of the meetings. And that mural happened in like a month. Like it was very quick because it was grant money and we had to get it done. And so I think just making sure that like, yeah, we're constantly communicating, and even if it's not a meeting, it's an email, right? Like just that back and forth of like communication, and not waiting for a meeting for something to happen. And so I don't know, it's a lot of thoughts. One thing I will plug really quick is we are kind of looking at our structure for like board and committee applications and recruitment and all of that. And the link to apply to CCE is available. It's online now, and maybe I can share that. And that's like the first thing that like, if you want to share that link with folks and be like, hey, apply, like that kind of thing, like that's an opportunity right now where we can ask people to get involved. But I don't know, sorry, those are not like all clear thoughts. It's a little bit all over the place, but a lot of good ideas and a lot of things that I want to like think about more, and then come back with like tools and opportunities and that kind of thing. So thank you.
Well, Nicole, I'm not sure if you were able to see the chats and the comments as you were speaking, but I think you've got some fans. I mean, folks are just they're echoing what you're saying. They really like your ideas, and so to the degree that you can be integrated and have time to share those tools and those ideas as we evolve, I think you're certainly welcomed.
Okay, great. And I mean, the other thing that I'll just say is they're mainly Kathy's ideas, and really I just like say them again. And so it's all Kathy. But I will drop the link to the board and the committee application just so people like have that available. So thank you.
So let me shift gears here a little bit. Interest of time, just doing a quick look here. We've got a little over 20 minutes. It may be hard to discuss in and amongst this idea of subcommittees and how often we might meet. Let's talk about our actual meetings. Right now, we're an hour and a half every other month. Okay. How do people feel about? How do they feel about that? If we were to add committee work for those people in between the full committees, the full committee meetings, if we were to add subcommittee work, would people have tolerance that when we came together for full committees that we would go 2 hours perhaps, and then you've got a segment on subcommittee reports as well as receiving initiatives from staff or from council, or no, Dave, I don't like that idea. Let's just meet once every month for 1 hour, and then you get the same net effect, but we're touching base more frequently. So what about some thoughts in that space? And Bhushan, I see you have your hand up.
Uh, I put my hand up because I'm not a fan of meeting more often, longer times, and all that. And the way I decide that is there work left for us at the end of the meeting, or are we rushing some things? Are we rushing important things, or does the people who come to our meetings present their material, want our input? Do they feel they're satisfied or not? So I want to take those factors into consideration before I raise my hand, say, or I agree to meeting more often or 2 hours. I like to evaluate the situation before we just say, well, let's devote more time to the meetings.
Looking for additional feedback in that space. And Nadine, Kent, also interested in your perspective. Would, you know, if we were to change it once every other month for an extended period of time, is that more or less attractive than once every month for 1 hour? Like what? And guys, I'm not suggesting that it has to change. I'm just trying to get a sense, because if there's more information, if we're going to go out and do more stuff, then we have to have a forum for us to kind of come together and discuss the impacts of that. So presumably we would need more time.
You know, what I do like is having more frequent meetings allows us to be more nimble and more responsive, and I think that could be really worthwhile. And how that comes together really is, you know, about how the committee's commitment in terms of time. So we're here to support that, and whether it's monthly or every other month, we'll definitely be here and doing the best that we can for the group.
Amber.
Yeah, I would agree with the person, I think it's Bashan, who said I'd have to understand more about what maybe the context was, what was the purpose. Were there other ways to possibly prepare, like if there were subcommittees, could they do PowerPoint report outs, you know, ahead of time so that we knew exactly what the discussion points or what the help needed were going to be, just so that the time, if we're going to have that extended time, that it is constructive.
Agreed. So I'm not hearing from anybody that they're not interested in that. I'm either hearing, yes, I would be, that it adds an element of being more nimble. And the other end of it would be, I'm not opposed to it, but let's ensure that there's an actual need and we're not just adding time for the sake of adding time, which I think everybody can certainly appreciate. And again, remember, this is not something that we have to, you know, decide. I don't think we're taking any votes tonight or, you know, anything like that. It's more just a roundtable conversation that we might, you know, simmer down to the next committee meeting and hopefully maybe make some decisions there. But so that's good feedback. Nadine, let me circle back to you with regard to the agenda. Are there any areas that you would like to specifically spend more time, or any areas that we haven't touched yet?
No, I think this conversation has been really helpful. And for me, the conversation is about the committee, and that everyone who's volunteering their time, that we're headed down the right path to make them, you know, feel like they're contributing in the way that they want to. So I've gotten a lot of notes, a lot of ideas about how we could potentially make some changes. So, you know, if other teammates have ideas about either what's kind of been missing from this conversation, or how they might like that to look a little bit different. I'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah, Amber.
So I just have a quick question. Now that we've had this conversation, is this a conversation that typically happens at the beginning of every, I don't know, session, like our new group forming, or is there something specific that has happened or that has been said that has prompted this conversation?
Well, you know, we have our committee members tend to come and go probably more frequently than what would be ideal. And I'm not throwing stones. That's just a little bit of life happening. So be it. So there's not really a natural time where it does. The committee does have a sort of committee year. It has a cadence to it, but it would be almost arbitrary to do it at that time because you really don't know the makeup of the committee from month to month a little bit. So there's nothing that precipitated the need for this other than kind of the sense of those individuals that have been on it for a while, maybe trying to move the fence posts in a little bit, narrow the fairway a little bit, and try to be more impactful rather than simply attend. And if you've been on the committee for a while, you get a sense you've kind of seen both, and you have this birdie in your ear saying, are we being as effective as we could be? And you're talking to fellow committee members and that sort of thing. Nadine or Liz, is there anything? Have I misstepped? Is there anything that was precipitory to us needing to have this meeting, feedback that you've received, or did we just kind of say, hey, it's about time that we look under the hood?
Well, I guess I will say, I periodically, I think we've had these committees, and I think it's a good thing to look at the committees that we as a city have designed. There are some committees like budget and library, they're sort of preordained. But the other thing is when you're interviewing candidates, and such as Amber, you hear about why people are interested, and you know the makeup of the committee, and you know the energy and the things that the current committee members raise. I think it's, Nadine and I just said, well, maybe we should just check back with the committee and see how they feel, in terms of impact, and looking at the bylaws. There's, as you said, there's a lot of latitude for this committee, and how do we encompass all of that in an impactful way? So that for me was a precipitation, and I don't know if Nadine has another thought, but she and I had a conversation after the last interviews, and we did have some feedback from a community member who was, after the interview, kind of wondering, well, what is this committee? And anyway, so long story short, and maybe Nadine has some comments.
No, I think you covered it, Councilor Newton. For me, it really did come out of the last group of interviews that we did, and recognizing that, people join the committee for different reasons, and we have a real variety of members in terms of time that they've been on the committee. And I think that being able to look at that, like hearing some of the stuff that Connie's talked about tonight, I knew nothing about that, so I don't know when the talent show ever happened. That was really interesting to me. So yeah, I think that's what brought it on, is just like having this opportunity and getting feedback from different places saying, are you really doing what the committee wants to, are they able to contribute in the way that they would like to contribute? And we want to make sure it's a good experience.
Yeah, Basil.
Right. I'd like to go back to the point you just made here. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'd like to go back to the point you just made here in your last comments, and the comment about, are we being as effective as we can be? I think that's a good question to ask, and I think it would be worthwhile to just to get feedback from everybody that's on the committee to answer that one question. or do they feel that we are being as effective as we can be? I would be curious, how people feel about that. I think we're all going to have an opinion of some sort. I don't know if it's a show of hands, yes, or a show of hands, no, or do we send you an email, might say yes or no, and maybe cite an example of why or why not, like that, because I think that might be helpful for the committee to have that information. And to that, I'd like to get a barometer of how people, if they feel that time is well spent and that it is productive. So I think it'd be helpful to the committee.
Yeah, Bishan.
We may have more questions than just have we been more effective or not. Do we spend enough time? Are we giving enough thoughts? Do we have enough interaction outside our own thinking? May I propose that we can put together a 5-question survey on Google Doc or something, and then get a feedback. And we're only 13, 15 people on this committee. Shouldn't be very hard. It's not a big, huge audience there. I think we should just craft some questions which we think are meaningful, useful, and we can get some ideas from there and run a survey. It shouldn't take more than a week or 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think I saw Taylor liking the idea as well. It's probably, I'm going to go out on a limb. I maybe shouldn't be doing this, but let me just, in terms of if we're going to send out a 3 to 5 question survey, I'm going to venture that most people are not going to say that we're as effective as we could be. Nobody seems to be confused as to what it is we're doing here tonight. So maybe if the bulk of those questions can be sort of follow up to what Basil had said in terms of, well, he may have to fill in the blank here because I forget exactly, but he had some good follow-up questions in terms of what is it that we could be doing, or why do you feel that way? Some open-ended stuff so that it's simple for staff, and if everybody could commit to taking the time to complete that. And obviously what you're looking for there would be trends. If the bulk of people have similar commentary, then I think you're on to something. But I'll take additional thoughts on that. Yeah, Kathy. And then Bishan.
I'm not a member, so Bishan, if you want to go first, please feel free.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, I like the idea of a survey. Just listening to this conversation for the last hour and a half, you guys have talked about outreach, and you've talked about engagement, and you've talked about events, and they're all very distinct. Like I define outreach is one way, it's about information. Engagement is 2-way, and it's about a conversation. And events really are about like building goodwill and community connections. So I think a survey would help you and help us make you feel effective, because we would better define the purpose of this group, of what you want to do and what you're able to do. Like, to me, I'm so thrilled by the conversation that I've heard, because you guys are having conversations that we're having internally. Like, Amber, I loved your description of diversity, about having more lived experience and shared experience, because our team meeting focused on that conversation yesterday. I'm like, diversity is so much broader than what we limit ourselves to. It's really about shared experiences and different perspectives, because the more voices who are participating, the better outcome will be. So I've been writing notes madly about the conversation, because we have some really transformative projects that the city's undertaking, and it would be great to pull you in. And the fact that you want to be involved and engaged is like relief to me, because I lose sleep with like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? There's only 24 hours in a day. So I'm thrilled that there's willing participants who want to be ambassadors and are ambassadors. And I'm really thankful that you guys shared your thoughts, and you will continue to hear from us. And most likely we're going to make you very busy, if you so choose, if you accept the mission. But thank you. Thanks for allowing me to come in. And I really, again, support the survey, because I want you to feel that this is a good use of time.
Well, likewise, Kathy, great to have your support, and thanks for giving the feedback in that space. Bhushan, I think your hand is up, and then looks like Amber.
I was going to volunteer myself to put this, giving the questions to me. I can put the survey together on Google Survey, and it should be, everybody has an email address. It should be fairly easy to send it out and get the feedback. And there's not much work involved. I've done this before, and that's why I'm volunteering myself. The work involved is questions we need to ask. Survey questions.
So Bhushan, maybe you can connect with Nadine to iron out the details of whatever, anything that you might need to know in order to do that. But yeah, I echo other committee members. I thank you for that. That's
no. And then the request is to committee members. What questions they want to see on the survey. Nadine can help me with something else, but the questions need to come from this committee.
Yes, understood. Just in terms, if there's anything you need to know in terms of how we communicate to committees, if that has to go through city or if that goes through you or whatever it may be, just check in with Nadine to make sure we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's on that.
Sure.
And then Amber.
That was an accident. I lowered my hand, sorry.
Okay. So given a 5-minute warning here, what are we leaving out? Is there anything that, as you all came to the meeting, you were hoping that we would discuss that we haven't, or something that you hope that you would have the courage to share that maybe you haven't at this point? Or just anybody want to take the bait from those two offers?
I would offer up that I'm actually really glad we had the conversation, because I was starting to wonder if I just basically joined a large focus group. And I just wasn't sure if this is what this was supposed to be. So.
So Nadine, let me come back to you. We've got a recorded session. Kathy's got good notes. I see your pen going to town there. What can we expect moving forward? In other words, the momentum that we've created here tonight, how do we maintain that? What should we do? And I guess I don't mean to put it all on your plate, but suggestions maybe first coming from you.
So I'm sitting here thinking about what those questions might be, but again, I feel like it's I'm the staff liaison, and it almost feels like I'm directing the group again, and I'm not sure that that's really what you're all looking for. So I'm wondering if people would like to propose questions, and then the group can choose. So I could just open it up and say, for the next week, if you have questions that you'd like to put forward for the survey, and I'll start collecting those and get feedback on that.
And for clarification, do you mean right now or just in the near future?
Well, if people could get me questions within the next week. Yeah, no, I don't expect people to pull it together in the moment, but just, give it some thought. And I think we can move it along pretty well so that we've got it all. So Bhushan, I'm saying that, but if we can get the questions together in the next week or so, we'd be able to survey out.
My thought is that let's collect the questions. You can receive them, you can send them to me directly, and then I would have I'll pick somebody's brain, like some David's brain or your brain or somebody's brain, to make sure that we have rich set of questions, and that would be the starting point for it, and we go from there.
Could we start maybe a new email chain to bring the other folks who are not at this meeting up to speed so that they can contribute to the survey as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and it probably is going to require just somebody framing this to get it started. And what are the questions? Why are we asking? Here's the deadline. And you're right, Taylor. There's a good number of our committee members that weren't here, so they clearly won't have any idea as to why this is jumping into their inbox. But then we can go from there. Yeah, Basil.
And the assumption is the questions will be like, there'll be a question and it'll say, strongly agree, somewhat agree, neutral, or something like that, right? You're probably not looking necessarily. There could be a line for if you want to cite an example or make a comment.
Exactly. It'll be Likert scale, and then underneath there'll be a space for comment.
Very, very good. Thank you.
Mm. So, David, I also was thinking. I also was thinking that I don't know, Nadine can start that email, or me, or you can start that email, and I can put some stuff together tomorrow, send it to you, copy Nadine, and then we can all think about it. It just depends how much time. I'm not saying I have nothing to do. So please
so let's have Nadine and Bhushan connect on this, and the two of them can decide how they want to attack it. I think the rest of the committee would be fine with whatever they come up with. Connie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a comment based on what the findings are and the results of the survey. Maybe we strategize and come up with some kind of plan, based on what we pull together. That can help us move forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's incumbent upon us to, in terms of the momentum we've created, that this be on our next agenda, that we kind of just do a verbal summary of what we've done. We go from the 50,000 foot level and let's drop down to 30,000 feet and continue the conversation and see if we can't hone this a little bit. We'll have some feedback, some minutes. We'll have some survey work that we can look at. And we do have some group think here in terms of where we'd like to go. It's a little bit of definition that it seems like it needs, but it all is through an optimistic lens, I think. So it is 8:30. Let me do a quick last call if there's anything for the good of the order. Anything from anyone in that space?
I would just jump in and say it feels like, are you all hearing that bad echo?
Yes.
Try again, Taylor. That might have been me.
Oh, I was just going to say, it feels like we're making some good momentum right now. And I just worry that if we push out until, I think our next regularly scheduled meeting is June, that, when is our next regularly scheduled meeting?
May.
What month is it now? April?
Yeah, this was a special session.
Okay, then perfect. Never mind. I'm good. This is why I never look further than a week out on my calendar either.
Okay, anything else from anyone else? All right, well, good work, everybody. I thank you for taking the time to attend, to give your extra attention and energy to this space. It's needed work, and so it's really great that you're able to do that. Nadine, last words from you or Councillor Newton?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good, folks. Thank you much, and we'll see you in about a month.
Okay.
Keep an eye out for that survey. Make sure and complete that survey work, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.